Taliya.
Hi, I'm Matthew.
And we are the
Critics.
So the movie we're reviewing today is the latest release from Quentin Tarantino, The Hateful Eight. It's his 8th film and it is a western. Both of us really enjoyed the film and it's come out this week in South Africa.
Yeah, it's the first weekend out in South Africa. We seem to take a while to get things, but some of the best things are the things you have to wait for the longest.
Definitely. Both of us thoroughly enjoyed the film. Found it a bit hard to find some critiques, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump straight into it. As per Matthew's trifecta of the classic Tarantino film,
Patent pending.
Trademark pending there, we look for blood and guts, we look for a cameo by Quentin, and we look for interesting dialogue and conversation between the characters.
Yeah.
So let's start off with blood and guts. It was there definitely towards the end a lot, but I felt, although it made me queasy, I'm easily queasy, it was necessary for the plot. It added to the whole western feel, it added to the whole brutal feel of the film, and I thought that he put it in the perfect places.
And I think it was important for a Tarantino, like it went a long time, a very long time without it. And as we said when we reviewed Django, is you kind of watch Tarantino because you're a Tarantino fan.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree with you completely. I think when it came, it was wonderful, it was beautiful, people were bathed in blood, and that's what you expect. You expect at least one person to be bathed in blood by the end of a Tarantino film, and we got that. It was, as you said, well done. I don't think it was Kill Bill excess, although I love the amount in that, but different reasons.
It was necessary and relevant to the story. The cameo by Quentin, he didn't appear, as he always does, as some random character, but he did do some narration for when we jumping back between a flashback and the current story. I liked it. I thought it added a nice feel to the movie, but I did miss seeing him.
Yeah.
As you expect in all of his films to just pop up there. We did miss that quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about the narration because it's not strong that it's Tarantino, and I feel like when we had the flashback to, it was chapter 4, because this movie's broken down into 5 chapters, which on a short side note I'm excited by, I like that.
Yeah.
It's good to see him go back to that. But when we've had that flashback, I really thought he was going to be either, as you suggested, one of the helping stable hands, or I really would have liked him as Sweet Dave. So I was a bit sad not to see that. I like that he was in the narration, but I feel like that's more of him coming across as the director-writer than coming across as a character, which is really what a cameo for me should be. So I was a bit disappointed that I didn't see Tarantino. But I know a lot of people are going to be out there and say, that's fantastic. We don't break the fourth wall. But yeah, a sad note for me.
The third thing that makes up the Tarantino trifecta is interesting dialogue and conversation.
Yeah.
I thought this was one of the films where you really saw that. The script writing was amazing.
Yeah. And
he sort of has this talent where he can tell you a whole character story without showing you any scenes, without wasting time on scenes. You just get it by the character speaking to another and telling their story.
And there were so many characters and they had so many different discussions, but you understood where each character was coming from.
Yeah, their motivation.
You got it very quickly. And I think there was some really good conversations. I think the more you watch this film, the more you're going to pick up on the nuances of those conversations. I felt like I was missing a lot, but that's because there was so much being thrown at you, which just means that it's, I mean, you can look at that as a critique as a negative, but I think it just means it's a very rewatchable movie.
Yeah. It has cult status.
Yeah.
You sort of find interesting quotes and it's going to last a long time.
Yeah, and some good pieces of comedy thrown in where you don't necessarily expect them.
Yeah, straight after some serious, in-depth scenes, you sort of get a random joke thrown in there.
And the movie house was laughing, which is not common. Even in comedy films, you very seldom actually hear people chuckling properly in a movie.
Yeah, people did laugh. That's true. That's true. In terms of the characters, I know you had a few favorites.
I absolutely. So I think for me, what I love the most is just the characters. I mean, the plot we'll get to, but and how that went, and that was amazing. But just that I loved every single character. I loved everyone from obviously Samuel L. Jackson's character is just incredible. I would give him all the Oscars and then some. Just like an honorary Oscar for life. Like each year he gets it. But the second best person this year.
Meryl Streep.
But even through to minor characters who didn't do much. Although I think the prisoner, Daisy, thank you. Her character was also just absolutely brilliant, and is reflected in the amount of like best supporting actresses nominations
that she's been given.
Yeah, because from the beginning you're like, there's something about this character that's different. It's not, she's smiling at weird times and slightly creepy.
There's going to be a twist, but you weren't sure. There was still suspense because of the dialogue and because of the interaction between the different characters.
I mean, even through to play to people like Mexican Bob, to the British hangman,
the general that had a whole backstory with Samuel and his son. Really
I think every character is interesting. I loved every character. They're all my favorite characters, but Samuel's my utmost. But you had a different favorite to me.
I had Chris Mannix. He was the soon-to-be sheriff of Red Rock.
Yeah.
I thought he was brilliant. I mean, he was so wild, so camp, and the acting was brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow, the way they delivered their lines. I mean, they've got to change their whole persona because it's set in in the West, and it's obviously a period film, so their accents and stuff had to change. But it all felt really authentic to me.
It felt really good, and I think because the characters are so important. But I think just to touch on the plot, I think it was very well set up, and that we were all kind of settling in the same way that the characters would have been settling into what we knew was going to be a long film, what for them was going to presumably be several days sitting out in the snow.
It almost it was the same thing as you just settling into watching, and them settling into sort of figure out everyone's story as well. And I don't know about you, but when the 8 of them were together, I counted and I said, okay, the 8 are here, things are about to go down.
Yeah.
It was cool.
And then it did, but in the most dramatic way.
The twist.
Samuel's story was deep and from nowhere, and just I don't know what to think of it. It was one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard.
So strange. Once again, like with Django, set against a very serious backdrop of the Confederation, race wars and stuff like that. Yeah.
And from then it just went, and from then it just boomed. Then we had the first time we heard the narration, and the 40 seconds before
the general gets shot.
We hear about the poisoning, and then it's just go, and you're in there, and because you get all the characters, everyone that gets shot, you feel something for. Everyone that turns, you're like, oh my word, what is this?
Yeah.
And then we slow right down, see what happens, and how it all got set up. And then that last scene, again, I was thinking similarly to Django, we don't wait forever to get our payoff.
Yes, it's just
done. There's big
and it's symbolic as well, very symbolic. Because he's built up the characters so much, everything they do is justified.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Tarantino's styling is something else.
Yeah.
He showed this again with the music, obviously in the film. The theme was very memorable.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the music, and as usual, he mixes in modern and old. But you really got that Western feel. Speaking of that, the set as well. The set had so much character. When they went into that Minnie's Haberdashery hotel / bar thing, it was just amazing. You could just see that place had so much history. You could tell that people would pass in and out of there.
It was a character in and of itself.
In and of itself, definitely. It seemed like he really worked hard on this film.
Yeah, and I think for me it was a beautifully shot, and that's what really, for me, apart from him getting better at storytelling, when you go from his older films to newer films, the shots are just more on point, they're more beautiful. That moment when Samuel L. Jackson's character is staring down Mexican Bob, and their hats are touching, and it's backlit. That was, for me, the shot of the movie, and that was brilliant. And so I think that was it. But I also think it was very beautiful in that regard, as much as it was very dirty and gritty. And when we shot to, the outside, it was a good juxtaposition between the darkness that was happening and the light outside, and the whiteness of the snow, and the purity and what's happening inside, and everything's dark and dreary.
Yeah, but also the place felt like a sanctuary. When they come out of the snow, you feel relief for them that they're getting, warm meal, coffee, etc. But also there was so much stuff going on inside the room that was terrible. So the set was a character on its own.
Yeah, and I think you can go. I mean, there's so much symbolism. You expect the coffee and the stew to be comforting food, but the coffee ends up killing and the stew ends up giving away the plot.
Yes,
or giving away the bad guys' plans. So, in the same way that you expect a letter from Lincoln to be what you expect. You expect people to be treated as they should be treated, but they're not.
Yeah.
There can be a ruse. Not everything is what meets the eye.
I thought the whole Abraham Lincoln story was interesting because it seems to be sort of set soon after he's dead.
Yeah.
There's a reference to John Wilkes Booth in the film as well. So the racial tensions were still there, and I think they brought that out nicely. It also made the end ironic because you see Samuel, who's a leader in the African American part of it, and then Chris Mannix, who's sort of
as redneck as you can get.
Yeah, hillbilly as he calls him in the film. So that was interesting also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I was looking for is I think and we spoke about this it's a Tarantino trait. It's a trait of a good director movie.
Yeah.
Very well paced.
You don't feel the time at all.
You don't. I mean, yeah, I really need the bathroom at the end. So an intermission might just for that reason, but no, it's right there and the tension builds beautifully and you're hooked from the beginning and there's no real wastage. I mean, we were talking about, there's that scene where he goes, who's the guy that, the cowboy, the guy that pretends to be the
Joe
cowboy.
Gage.
Yeah, Joe Gage, where he goes around back to finish off and kill the
stable hand.
The stable hand. And we're saying, is that wasted? But we came to the conclusion, I think you were right in this, is that up until then, his character had been kind of weak.
A soft character.
Character, yes, soft, not weak. And that shows him to be, no, he's just as much of a killer as the rest of these guys. He's just as hardcore as the rest of them. So no wastage. Everything had an impact. Well timed. Got us to where we needed to be.
Yeah.
Even though it's long. But I'll watch it again.
We'd rewatch it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, no, we are Tarantino fans, but oh my goodness, one of my favorite films ever.
Definitely, The Hateful Eight, brilliant work.
Yeah.
Brilliant work.
So thank you very much for watching. If you liked, please click like, please click subscribe if you want to see more of us. Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitters in our description box below. But I'm Matthew.
I'm Taliya.
And this has been the Critics Review of The Hateful Eight.